Stu Wright, by Steve Evans for something that might be filled with Kafkaesque bleakness. We are talking about Liverpool falling to a 1-0 defeat away to an energy-depleted Leicester City. We will look ahead to the game against Chelsea a little bit. We won't do loads on it because they haven't even played their game against Brighton yet, so it's difficult to envisage precisely what Chelsea were dealing with. Simultaneously, Manchester City will be turning up to Brentford with a massive spring in their steps, given the fact that their only likely challengers for the Premier League title this season have dropped points. We'll talk about where that title challenge is as well, whether or not it is indeed in ribbons at my feet, or whether or not there is more to come from the mighty boys in red. Can they turn it around from this point? Also on the show, TAW Live, if you're listening as a podcast, we have some excellent inserts. We've got Adam Rowe on his 2020, on him doing live at the Apollo, and his upcoming tour. That is all to come as well. So we've got the comedian Adam Rowe, and we've got the comedian Rob Gutman on 10 years of the Anfield Wrap. That is to come to. What more can you ask for from a piece of live podcasting about Liverpool Football Club? Stu Wright, it was going to be hard to win this league. It was going to be hard to win this league. It now looks like it's going to be a great deal harder. There's been points dropped from winning positions this year. But if you'd have said to me as Mohamed Salah was about to step up and take that penalty, Liverpool aren't going to win this today, I'd have thought you were an absolute head case. It feels like points dropped from a winning position. It doesn't feel like 3 points dropped. It feels like 350 points dropped.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of the competition now, isn't it? You can't afford ever to lose. You've got to win every game. That's the way it feels in this climate that City have co-created along with ourselves. I don't like City getting all the credit for that, but I think you just can't afford an off night, and too many of them had a massive off night. I don't think it was for want of trying. In some cases, I've heard, on various outlets, the Mane and Salah get it in the neck. And the thing is, with their performance, I thought they kept showing. They kept showing and showing and showing. They just didn't have the output. They just didn't have that end product that they normally have. But I think there are individuals in the team who you can look at quite clearly from the performance to say you weren't at your level. And maybe that's something that happens more often than we realise sometimes, because we've got a number of players who can win a game single-handedly. If Mane sticks that in the net and we come away with a 1-0, if Salah scores the penalty, we come away with a 2-0. Are we digging out the midfield like we potentially are going to? Are we looking at one or two in the defence like Trent, who again wasn't at his level? Are we looking at the keeper so much? I don't know. But I think when your key players haven't got the output, when they can't provide you with the life-saving goal, then everyone in the team needs to be digging in, and I just didn't see that last night.
What I think, Steve, what I think is an excellent point is that what often happens with this Liverpool side, or has happened with this Liverpool side, is that one or two of them are able to pull the rest up. And the one or two of them can change. Sometimes it'll come from the base of the midfield and Fabinho and Thiago. Sometimes it might come from the midfield runners. It might come from Henderson and Trent down the right-hand side. Often this season, it's obviously been the top scorer in the country, who's part of why we are at the party in the first place, and it's worth remembering that. There's been moments where absolutely all of them have pulled the rest of them along, and then everyone's gone up a level, and suddenly Liverpool are back and working. I thought what you saw last night is literally no one did that, and the opposite happened. Everything just collapsed in on itself. The fine for the first 15 minutes. They're not great, don't get me wrong, but they're fine for the first 15 minutes. And I would say that performance for every 10 minutes that followed after 15 minutes degraded over and over and over.
Yeah, I could see the confidence just kind of getting sucked out with every sort of failed attack, really. Mo certainly didn't have a great game, neither did anyone else. Mane frustrated the life out of me again. And these things that they keep trying, they huffed and puffed. You can't fault them for effort, but just the end product, or the final pass, or the finish, obviously from the penalty from Mo, or the chance that Mane created and should have scored from just before Leicester scored, kind of typified the night for us, really. Loads of endeavour, loads of effort, but just not really getting anywhere or creating anything. I don't think the substitutions helped as the game went on. They probably made it a bit more difficult for them. Every time a new player come on, with the shape going even madder or different, and then there seems to be too many players in the same areas really, which again, made it difficult for us to create anything solid. So it was a really frustrating night at the office for everyone really. I think we turned up expecting them to tie the second half and to create more chances. But one fact we did do is give them more hope and give them more encouragement of that they could get something from the game and get 3 points because by us being pretty poor in that final third.
Andy, the idea of giving them belief is the thing in the game that I found hardest. Watching it at the time, in hindsight, Liverpool could not give Leicester more encouragement in every single phase that as Steve's hit on there. I think that I think before kick-off, those Leicester players might have just taken getting beat 2-0. After he misses the penalty, they begin to think, hang on, we could be in this. Then every 10 minutes again, they felt a little bit more like, hang on, we've survived another 10 here. And the idea of giving your opposition more and more to believe in over the course of a football match it's tough to take, and it's tough to take in the context of this title race.
Yeah, Gerrard got interviewed, didn't he, after the Villa game at Anfield, and he came out and explicitly just said, I told them to stay in it, hang on as long as you can, try and be 0-0, 1-0 down, 65, and then if there's anything to play for, we'll do it. And he was dead open and honest, saying, there's a chance you get to 60 and Liverpool are out of sight. He said, but with the difference, and I think Leicester done that last night, and it felt weird for me. Like, first 15, I thought it had a feeling of inevitability, like we were going to... Trent was going to do one of them little diags in the box. It was going to be a flick. And then once the penalty happened, you're like, yeah, this is it, 1-0. And then I thought it could have gone on to be 3 or 4 before half-time. It could have had a feel of Man United. But it just started creeping in. And one of the, certainly on the telly, obviously, Neil, I know you went. I think the others watched it. It became a bit like jovial on the telly. Like Henderson had them 3 volleys. And McCoyster is brilliant. And by a mile, my favourite co-commentator. It was almost like, you've probably not seen it, Neil, but he was like rating them out of 10, like you would for like a Strictly Come Dancing or something. And it became like a joke, but because you got sucked into that, you thought, it's all going to be all right. But then near the end of the first half, Vardy has probably the biggest chance of the whole game based on the XG stuff I've looked at this morning. And obviously Matip blocks it. But then, before we come in here, I said, for me, the biggest thing was on 55, I think Rodgers is looking, going, they've started well for the second half. The Mane miss completely changes everything in the game. I think it means it's 0-0. He makes a double change a minute after it. I know we bring Keita on, which I thought was a strange substitution anyway. But he brings 2 more attacking players on right after that. And that's when I think he thought, right, we're on 55 here and we've got a chance to get something out of this. And I'm not sure Tielemans made much of a difference. Certainly initially he was poor when he came on. He looked like a different player. But obviously Lookman comes on and makes a massive difference. His only real one major influence on the game and he scores it. But yeah, I think that, as you said, the 10-minute thing was a good analogy. Every 10 minutes they grew into the game more. But I think the Mane miss was the deciding point.
I think Steve, we've all been dreadful footballers in different ways, so let's be clear about this, but we've all played in football matches where you do think, at some point you think, hang on, they just keep missing. We're in this, and in a way that we maybe don't even deserve to be. They just keep missing. We'll get something out of this, and that it just had a big sense of that to me all the way through the game. I think I completely agree with Andy with the idea of the immediate aftermath of the Mane miss. But I just thought that they suddenly start to think to themselves, Leicester, all the way through, they're letting us have this here. They're letting us have this one, and for me, it's that's as I keep saying it, it hurts so much to say it. It hurts to have let a team off the hook. It hurts to have let them off the hook. There's another universe there where, as Andy says, it's 3-0, 4-0 to Liverpool, maybe even by half time, and we all feel very, very, very different today.
Yeah, it's true, but then it's a lot of ifs and buts, and you've got to be ruthless in these situations. And for me, that's been a bit of a theme all throughout the season in them killer situations when we've had times to put games to bed. We haven't, and there's been some of them games that we've won. Obviously, look at the Villa game at home, for example. So many chances to put the game to bed, and we just don't do it. The ruthlessness that this side has shown over the past 3 or 4 years to get us to the level that we are. just hasn't quite been there for me at times this season when it should be. And eventually, if you're not as ruthless as you should be and you miss these chances, odds are you're going to get punished. You could see straight away from the penalty miss last night, the tails were up, the crowd were up, give them all these encouragement they needed. And as I said before, every sort of failed attack that we had in the second half, we looked a little bit more clueless, and then Sadio misses his chance, and we lose our shape. And it's poor defending by Henderson and by Trent, to be honest with you. The keeper doesn't cut himself in glory. And then
the guy the centre halves do either, Steve.
No,
you know what I mean?
Really
you end up with almost like it's one of them where I feel like half the team, 5 players, are at the scene of the crime of that goal.
Yeah,
and it's to be spread amongst all of them, and you're just thinking to yourself, Christ, that's not a good place to be.
Yeah, and again, I think the chance comes from a ball being played into the feet up front, which doesn't stick. So the failure is linked across the whole team, which again it was last night. So our reactions to these big chances being missed wasn't great last night, and as you said, there's all the encouragement that Leicester needed to go into the game, and they look stronger as the minutes tick by. We were never going to get one, I don't think.
Stu, on the subs, which is it's interesting to me. I thought both Milner and Keita in the League Cup game come on and they make a massive difference. Like they hugely changed the game positively from Liverpool's point of view, especially Keita. I thought for the first 10 after Keita came on, it was like he'd not played footy before. It was stunning, to be honest with you. Milner's not that much better. I think Milner settles into the game. He gets a bit of an anchor into the game as it wears on a tiny little bit. Keita, again, I think he just begins to find himself. But when Liverpool needed subs to come and change the game, to me, it all feels a little bit... Felt a little programmed. Felt like it was all done on sports science. As part of Liverpool, I think we're just expecting the game to come through to them. The game just to find its way through to them. The result to come their way. I don't know what he'd have done differently if the game state was different, is my sort of point, with the exception of the Firmino sub.
Yeah, I think it's fair as well to give them a little bit of accountability for the lack of impact they had when they come on. But I think there's some context as well. Liverpool had no control over the game. In fact, Liverpool, when he made those substitutions, Liverpool completely changed the shape to a shape that they're unfamiliar with. I mean, it's a shape that Keita's familiar with. It's one he was successful with in the 4-2-3-1 over in when he was in Germany. So the manager knows that, we can do a job there. But Liverpool just didn't have the platform to be able to build a sense of wave after wave after wave of attack, which is very much what we needed at that moment in time. So I think the substitutions, as you say, they really counted against the manager, really. They just had a negative impact on the game. But when you look at what was available on the bench, there wasn't it was a paucity of options, really, for the nature of change that I think that we needed within that game. I mean, if there was ever a game that you're crying out for Thiago, it was that one. You needed someone desperately to be able to control that midfield, put your foot on the ball and dictate the play, and actually just, put a flag down and say, we're going to actually mount attack after attack from this position. But, the option wasn't there, unfortunately so.
What they do, Stu, and I think it's in part because of the nature of the game as it was, I couldn't believe how much we had the ball in their penalty area. Like in high, I think it's crazy how much we have the ball in there.
It's the most touches, Neil, that I think there's ever been in the Premier League in a penalty area in a game.
Without a goal or just full stop?
I think full stop.
Wow. It was 38 in the first half, wasn't it, or something?
They were, and I think that this almost becomes a bit of a weird sort of problem for Liverpool, and I think it's purely accidental. I don't think it's anything that's tactically brilliant, but it suits those two centre-halves who aren't centre-halves, who are centre-mids, that they're getting the game brought. They're not getting done with movements, because there's nowhere to do movements. For me, one of the better chances of the match, in hindsight, is the Henderson header that he doesn't quite connect with, where if he just gets any more on that, he diverts it past Schmeichel. But that's from a run from deep, where they've got centre-halves who aren't centre-halves, so no one anticipates it, no one sees it, and no one goes with it. What we were doing was we were just bringing the ball to them, Stu, in a really weird way. And we were letting them do the blocks, the tackles, all the stuff that you give each other a high five, you feel good about. And it's a really weird thing to think that, almost because it was so easy for us to get into the penalty area in a really weird way. I think that's it was almost like rope-a-dope, but as I say, I don't think it's deliberate. You don't let a team like Liverpool be in your penalty area that much if you can help it. But Liverpool almost played themselves out of being good in their box, because they thought, well, we'll just get back in a minute, we'll get another go.
Yeah, two things on that. First of all, I think that the way home for teams against Liverpool, if they are going to try and mount a defensive assault, if you like, if they are going to try and camp, then then it's been shown over the years that the teams who clog up the middle have the most successful chance. So whether that's you playing 3 centre halves or you're playing 3 deep line midfielders just in front of them, whatever floats your boat, I suppose. But clogging Liverpool up in those central areas is a way home. But also, I heard. I don't know if it was on the commentary itself or it was on social media. I mean, my mind's mixed it all up now from last night. But I heard a lot of people saying that Liverpool needed more composure. Well, I think the opposite is true. I think that's a complete load of tosh. In the box, the last thing Liverpool needed was more composure. The last thing Liverpool needed was more touches on the ball. Liverpool needed to move the ball quicker. Liverpool needed to stretch their defence and get them thinking. Every time we enter into their box, yeah, we might take a few extra touches and try and work an angle, but by which time their defence was set, everyone was back in the middle, bodies were everywhere. And that's the way home against Liverpool. You need a little bit of luck. In fact, you need a large slice of luck against Liverpool to get away with it. But it's your best way home. And, they had the luck. We didn't. But I would certainly like us to see us in those situations being brave and moving the ball quicker, taking more risks to try and create those opportunities and unsettle a back four. Stop giving them time, to set themselves. Stop
giving them time. It's one... Andy, where, as I say, the league table's grim reading now. I felt as though last night, in a number of different ways, I thought there was just this little thing where, as I say, they needed to win. They felt that the game was just going to come their way. They were allowing it to sort of to ebb in, to it working their way. I felt Chamberlain was too conservative in the middle of the park. I think he was trying to play a little bit like Wijnaldum, rather than just being more sort of grab the game by the scruff of the neck and see what you can do with it. But I'm sure that in a sense, Liverpool will have been relatively happy with that. But that's sort of what I mean. I think Liverpool felt as though if we just keep these pens in, given the nature of where they are for their fitness and their selection, eventually something comes. And that I just prefer Liverpool when they're trying to make it happen. And that to me is I think that ebbs away. I think that's there. They missed the pen, and then it's no longer like they're trying to make it happen. Yeah,
I think Leicester reminded me a bit of us back in the last season with two midfielders playing centre half. They very much wanted just to be sat in and go, okay, well, everything's in front of us, and I think indeed he's made something like 9 tackles and 7 interceptions or something across the course of the game. But there was never a point where we broke on them from halfway, where we're so clinical and we've got, 4 runners and Trent's feeding the ball in. And it just looked very much like a game of, I'm sure we've all been involved and watched them attack with defence in training. And when you've got 9 lads, Vardy sat up front waiting for anything that comes loose, and then 9 of them just sat there going, go on then. Because they've got a good keeper, to be fair to them. Has kept them in it, made 3-4 really big saves. It just kind of took everything away from us, but we've got to be much better in the round of penalty. One thing that kind of hasn't come out, and a few people have made comment, I thought Henderson looked fucking way off it last night. I love him to death, you know what I mean? We just bought our Joe a new kit with his name on, and he's very much like it's not me digging him out for digging him out's sake here. I just thought he looked a mile off it after 10-15 minutes, but it never got commented on. I thought Chamberlain was unlucky to come off for him.
I agree.
For Keita, I would have done Henderson. There was a point in the first half where he was off the pace, and I was thinking, something's not right with him. And because his levels are so high normally, and as people who watch him a lot, we see what he does for the team. He just wasn't giving us anything last night, and I'm hoping. It's not a dip in form. I'm hoping he was ill or something, and he just put it because TAW was out. They risked him a bit, and it'll come out. He might miss a game, but yeah, I thought Henderson was the biggest one not on his game last night, which then filtered through to the others because he is such a driving force within the team.
It's another one where you end up feeling like Liverpool have had a form of hard line, Steve, in that they could have scored the penalty. It could have been a little bit different. What happens after Leicester go 1-0 up, that's totally down to Liverpool, you know what I mean? Liverpool probably, at the point Leicester go 1-0 up, Liverpool do deserve to be ahead in the game. From the point Leicester are 1-0 up, Liverpool don't deserve a thing out of it. Football's not as binary as you either deserve something or you don't. But my problem with this is there's too many where I feel as though Liverpool have got mitigating circumstances. Brighton, it could have been 3-0, it turned into 2-1. They throw the lead away. West Ham, they have hard lines with the referee early in the game. Think, it is a foul as far as I'm concerned, but they don't really recover from it. Haven't got the game back to 1 each. They go on and lose the game. Tottenham, whether they deserve to be or not, they got themselves 2-1 ahead. They didn't see that one out. You end up going through this list of games this season, even the 2 games against Chelsea and City. Chelsea, it's 10 men. City, they take the lead twice. This is what concerns me is you can lose a league because of mitigating circumstances. You can lose a league because of hard lines. And I'm sat here today just concerned that come the end of the season, there'll be 2 or 3 sides that'll feel like they've got some hard luck stories in this league. But ultimately, at the minute, you get what you deserve, and City deserve to be 6 points clear of Liverpool.
Yeah, again, it comes back to the point I made before about the ruthlessness. Manchester, you think Manchester City side playing that Leicester team last night would have come away with nothing? I very much doubt.
You'd have scored a goal.
100%. That's what just my point this season. I just don't think we've ever quite hit. A couple of times Watford away and a few other performances we played really well, but the consistent level of the high performance we show when we won the league, when we're ruthless enough to go and just dominate games, and we can see games out, and we're conceding hardly any goals, no stupid goals anyway. It's just not there for me as much this season. That's not me saying that it's, I'm conceding the title at the moment, but it's unless things change radically at both ends of the pitch, we're more ruthless in front of goal, and we stop conceding such sloppy gift goals, which we seem to do so easy this season again. Then it's really going to make it hard for ourselves. A foot on the throat of a game is going to be easy to do it if the likes of Mane and Salah just maybe stop overthinking things a little bit. I thought that was the case last night with both of them. I thought rather than act on instinct, I thought Sadio Mane now is literally overthinking things a little bit too much and trying to force things, and instead of it happening naturally for him. The same for Mo a little bit last night as well. I thought that was really tough. We've got no natural abilities there, but trying to force the game and trying to force chances, especially the last 10 minutes where we were getting balls into feet at the edge of the box and Mane was spinning off. We should have been doing that from the start of the second half. And it just took us going goal down with 5 minutes to go to start playing decent balls in and around the box.
Stu, you look at the results this season, and there's 2 games Liverpool have won by a solitary goal. And you sort of think back to the 1920 season when I think there was a run where we won 8 or 9 by a solitary goal. You look at the games where they've dropped points. If you want to just write off the City and Chelsea draws, I don't. I still think they're a valid conversational point. But even there, you've got the game against Spurs, you've got the game against West Ham, you've got the game now against Leicester, you've got the game against Brighton and Hove Albion, and you've got the game against Brentford. And in all of them, Liverpool have ample opportunities to win those games by at least a single goal. And that is my overriding concern with this side. Isn't how it's going to play when it's playing ever so well. It isn't even how it's going to play when it's playing genuinely badly. It's how it's going to just march its way through, sashay its way through a game when things are all a little bit in the balance, and it's just going to find a way. Against Wolves and Villa, it looked like they had that knack. But now in these 2 away games, Tottenham and Leicester, that knack, to me, feels up for grabs.
I think it might be dangerous for us to give in to the temptation to compare ourselves to 1920 all the time.
Very fair, because it was an incredible team that did an unbelievable thing.
It was, and if anything, you look at the personnel, and this team might be on paper better, but actually, there's moments in time, isn't there? And that moment in time may well have been the peak for this team. It certainly may well have been when they were at their most efficient best. We're not as efficient as we used to be. I also think that there's still things that they're trying to work out. The balance of the midfield has chopped and changed a little bit, and it's a little bit different in its nature now that Genie's gone. But also the expected output from them is a little bit more than I think the functionality of the way it was in previous seasons. And obviously we've had a significant changeover up front with Jota, who's performing really well, but at the same time, there's a different combination there for the midfield to link into than Firmino. You've got Virgil come back, and he's found his way back to hopefully his very best very soon. But we're just not quite the same. And there's also a human factor, Neil. The hunger Listen, if you asked any of that squad if they were hungry for the title, of course they'd say yes, and I'm sure they think they are, and I'm sure they really are. But actually, comparatively to a time 1920 when they had just missed out the year before, they were riding the crest of a wave, having won the Champions League and the World Cup Championship. It felt like that momentum was with them. Doesn't quite feel like the same momentum is carrying them forward this season, and I think they feel that too. It just feels a little bit more of a battle, and despite that, they're still in the mix, and I think they'll be in the mix all the way through. But there's no doubt now that we are looking at City and saying we're not quite there with them at the moment. We're not quite at that level, but there will be times, and there have been times earlier on this season that City have looked at us and gone, we're not sure we're quite at that level. When we've gone to Old Trafford and smashed them 5-0, I'm sure City were looking at us in quite the same way. So it feels at the moment that we're in a bit of a trough, and it's going to be a scramble to try and get to the peak again. But it's probably a little bit too early to get carried away with it at this stage.
More on that in a minute. Coming up, we've got Adam Rowe and we've got Rob Gutman. Both of those to come. This is TAW Live. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you, even if the result against Leicester most definitely was not in any way, shape or form, or indeed the entire experience pleasurable. It is fair to say. We'll be back in a second after we've got Adam and we've got Rob. But if you've stayed with us all the way through live, we're back. It is Neil Atkinson with Stu Wright, with Andy McCann and with Steve Evans to talk about now looking ahead to the Chelsea game. Now, we're not going to do much on this because Chelsea have not played Brighton at the time at which we're talking to one another. The one thing we can say, Steve, and we can say it with absolute certainty, is it's become must win. It's... City will absolutely bounce into Brentford tonight. For me, there's a comparison in 1920, and Stu's right before not to hark back to it, but in 1920, Liverpool go to Leicester and they win 4-0. The following night, City drop points against Wolverhampton Wanderers after having seen Liverpool be that impressive. I think those City players will almost feel like they've won. Not won against Brentford, but they won the game last night. They will bounce into Brentford full of adrenaline, knowing what putting 3 more points on the board will mean. I think they roll Brentford tonight. We cannot drop points at Stamford Bridge.
100%. It's the season. I mean, not the season defining, because I think even if we go there and win, we still might be enough. But we've got to give ourselves some hope by going there and getting results and going there and putting on a performance that shows that we can win this league title. It's either that or we just go for the we sit back and we try a few different things and just ensure top 4 and go for the Champions League, which is not what we want to do. So. It's vital that we go there and try and turn over a very, very good Chelsea side. There's some changes that definitely I would make. I think I think the front 3 needs freshening up a little bit. Maybe he'll hark back to what he played at Man United away. I think you might see Mane drop out. I think he might need a little bit of a rest or give us something different up the top there. But we need to go there, come out all guns blazing and put on a real show at Stamford Bridge and hopefully get 3 points and put us back in the title race.
It is a must-win to think about our team for the second, Andy. I think that Steve might have a point there. It wouldn't surprise me to see Mane from the bench on this one. It also wouldn't surprise me to see if there's any way he gets Thiago back in, he gets Thiago back in. I wouldn't be surprised to see Keita start alongside Thiago and Fabinho in there as well. He's got a little question, I'd say, about who starts next to Van Dijk. And the other thing I will point out from the Leicester game and in general, we've maybe got to be a little bit conscious that earlier in the season it didn't look like this was the case, but right now there is a drop-off between Robertson and Tsimikas.
Yeah, I think based on last night, it'd be who started Matip. I know that's a bit daft because obviously Van Dijk, but for me that's not a question. Even though Konaté's done well, I think there's as many flaws in Van Dijk at the minute as there is any of the others. Certainly his partners, but I think he brings an air of calmness. But I agree with. I'd be reluctant, even though I've just kind of singled him out for being off it last night. Unless there's an injury, I think I'd be reluctant to go to Chelsea away without Henderson playing in a midfield 3. I think Thiago coming back into that would be essential. And I think I wholeheartedly agree on Firmino coming back in, because I think what Firmino will give you that none of the others give you is the pressing in the kind of the deep lying area with obviously Kovacic, who's back to fitness now, will possibly start, but Jorginho is their main man. I think he keeps them ticking over. He's been fundamental to everything they've won over the last few years, and I think Firmino is probably the best forward in the world at doing that, covering in deep areas. So I think he'll definitely come in, even if it's just for that. And then what you often find when Firmino plays is Mane and Salah in the wide areas play better. And I think that the change that Steve referenced about Jota coming in, even though he's been brilliant and hit the ground running, I think he changes the dynamic of the front three. And the argument, certainly based on last night, is potentially negatively changes the whole dynamic, even though he's individually contributing. So I think Firmino coming in may give you that back, and then Jota, I would go Jota left. Obviously, you stay with Salah, but then Firmino in. And I think if Thiago's muscle strain, which Klopp referred to it last night, is just a very slight muscle strain, it's nothing too serious, I'd be bringing him straight back in, yeah. And I think him taking Fabinho off last night is evident that he's definitely going to start as well, which I think we all would anyway. But the fact he took him off before he got booked, he's a guaranteed starter.
You'd think so, Stu. You'd think so. It's all on the line, isn't it? It is a massive game on Sunday. You can't actually talk it up enough now. I don't think what's on the horizon there on Sunday. Obviously, we've got to get the other side of their game tonight and see what shape they look like there in Chelsea. But it is absolutely must win.
Yeah, I hate games like this because if you win it, we'll have gone to Stamford Bridge, we'll have won, and it'll feel great and everything like that. But all you get out of it is that you're still in the mix. And you're still potentially 6 points behind. Whereas if you lose, it's game over. We go there and we get beat, forget it.
It's like a final, but without the trophy.
Yeah. And so it's an unfair balance, I think, in terms of my enjoyment, my entertainment for Sunday afternoon, really. But I think Andy's right in the shout for Jota being on the left. I like the idea of his unpredictability from that position. I think that'll be needed. I'd definitely be bringing Bobby back in. Much the same as shouts as have been said all around, really. I think, the more often that we can get our preferred midfield three, which I think we all agree is Henderson, Thiago and Fabinho in there, the better it's going to be for us. But I think it's a really tough one to call, this really tough one. I just hope that actually what makes the difference is the fact that we just got beat. And Liverpool then actually, put the shoulders back, heads up, and really put on a great performance, a kind of performance where, whatever happens, we are not getting beat. No way. And Liverpool have shown in the past that they can go that way. But there's also a flip side to that coin where, that little loss of momentum could carry over to another game. So I think it's so tough to call when the stakes are this high and the level of competition against Chelsea is also so high.
They're a good side, Steve. They're as good as us so far this campaign at the halfway mark in terms of points on the board. The one thing I'd say is I think they've caught moments of luck in maybe a way in which we haven't. Brentford away being a very good example of one where they don't deserve to get out with anything, and they do. They get out with all 3 points. I think if there's a game where I'd quite like Liverpool to not just be good but also be lucky, it is Sundays at Stamford Bridge. We could also do with the referee who's worth a carrot.
Yeah, Christ. Do they exist? It's Chelsea have. I ever thought they'd run away with the start of the season, the way they started the campaign very, very well. Some very good performances with scattered bits of luck, as you say. There were games that they got away with a little bit. I've relied a lot on goals from centre halves and defenders, full backs, but Lukaku's back now, seems to recover from his ankle injury and COVID, so he will be a threat. They're a very good side, and if we go there with anything less than our very best, then we'll get rolled. And if we do that, then it's going to be a long fucking January with everyone going to AFCON as well. So it's vital that we go there with a reaction. And the good thing about this Klopp side is they usually do bring a reaction with them after a bad performance. So
manager was emphatic as well, wasn't he, after the game, Steve, that it wasn't acceptable in a way he often isn't.
Yeah, an absolute demand. He will have them. He will be up their arses to speak big time, get them to demand a performance from them at Stamford Bridge in these days. So it's massively important we go there and do it.
Give me a prediction, Steve.
2-1.
Liverpool.
Of course.
Stu. Stu, you're on mute. Come on, mate.
3-1. 3-1.
3-1 Liverpool.
3-1 Liverpool. I'm all on the back of. I think Steve just persuaded me over the how Klopp was after the game. Really, I think that might be the difference maker.
Okay, Andy.
My prediction, Neil, and it might be because I've just come out of an 8 or 9 day isolation period. I'm in COVID over Christmas and I'm looking for anything positive. Is, you know what? It's not that bad. We've played 19. We've lost 2. City have lost 2. So they're 6 points ahead of us. The 3 draws they've had, the 3 draws we've had are the 6 points difference. We repeat what we've done over the next 19, but we beat them, cancel out a couple of draws, and number 20 is coming home. And it starts on Sunday, Neil, with a 3-1 win. Salah showing why he's back to his best, and Mane coming off the bench just to rectify the Leicester win. There you go. There's me post-COVID bit of cheer for you, Neil.
A wonderful cheer, honestly. Absolutely wonderful cheer. I might have to walk around with me for the next 3 days, to be honest with you, Andy. Like a chirpy St. Bernard.
I'm out at midnight, mate. Wherever you want to meet, let's do it. I'm out at midnight. I'm up for it.
Me and McCann, El Bandito, talking the Reds up midnight tonight. See you in there. Be there, up East Square.
Tour Midnight Live.
Tour Midnight Live, like Hollyoaks over Dart, but a lot less sexy. Thank you very much indeed, too. And trust me, that's a low bar to not clear. Thank you very much indeed to Steve Evans, to Stu Wright, to Andy McCann, also to John Gibbons, Rob Gutman and Adam Rowe for all taking the time. No thanks to the mighty boys in red, but if Andy McCann's right, we'll have so much to thank them for on Monday. We won't even know where to start. This league is not going to win itself, but Liverpool have got to make sure they do not lose it cheap.